My name is Jim Cates, and I am here to tell you about a very important birthday, June 14th, the birthday of our American flag. Flag Day celebrates the June 14th, 1777 resolution by the Continental Congress designating the Stars and Stripes as the flag of the United States of America. On May 30th, 1916, President Woodrow Wilson issued a proclamation designating June 14th as Flag Day, and on August 3rd, 1949, an act of Congress proclaimed June 14th as Flag Day. So how did our beloved Stars and Stripes come to be? Before the shot heard round the world was fired, the Union flag of Great Britain was the flag of colonial America. The red ensign of the Royal Navy was the most common flag flown in British colonies around the world. It was composed of the Union flag of Great Britain in the left upper corner on a field of red. It is better known as the Union Jack. Our flag, as we know it, started with a tree. In 1765, Sons of Liberty groups formed all over America to organize protests of the Stamp Act. Boston's group met under an elm tree near the Boston Common. In that same year, 9 of the 13 colonies sent delegates to the Stamp Act Congress in New York to organize America's resistance to the hated Stamp Act. In 1767, Boston's Sons of Liberty erected a flagpole and flew a flag with 9 vertical stripes for the 9 colonies sending delegations to the Stamp Act Congress. Shortly thereafter, the royal governor banned the Stripes of Liberty. The Sons responded with a new banner, now with 13 horizontal stripes. This Liberty flag is the origin of the stripes of our flag. Shortly after Bunker Hill, George Washington assumed command of the new Continental Army. According to her descendants, he commissioned a well-known flag maker, Rebecca Flower Young, to design a flag. She made the Grand Union flag. It was easy to sew by adding 6 white stripes of rebellion to a British red ensign. Washington raised the flag on January 1st, 1776, over the American Army camp in Cambridge, Massachusetts. At this point, the Americans and British were at a stalemate. His Majesty's Army and Navy controlled the city of Boston and its harbor. Washington's Continental Army controlled the surrounding countryside. You may have noticed a potential problem with this flag. Many people in Boston interpreted the Grand Union flag as a sign of American capitulation. As it turns out, the Grand Union flag was nearly identical to another flag used in the British Empire in the Far East. Most Americans would have never seen the flag of the British East India Company as it was flown only in the Indian Ocean. But these flags could be sisters. Certainly, British officers recognized the similarity. To add further confusion, in October 1775, the king had indicated a willingness to forgive the Patriots if they would give up the rebellion. In 1775, news could travel only as fast as a horse could gallop or a ship could sail. Because the message had to cross the Atlantic, the king's proclamation reached Boston only a few days before Washington hoisted the new flag. 3 days later, the general wrote, "We had hoisted the Union flag, but it was received in Boston as a token of the deep impression the speech had made upon us, and as a signal of submission." Clearly, a new flag was needed, lest there be any confusion. So how did the stars join the stripes? No one really knows. Since ancient times, stars have represented mankind's highest aspirations. What higher aspiration than freedom? What more logical backdrop for stars than blue? Stars had been used on regimental and company flags, such as these from Rhode Island and Vermont. On June 14, 1777, Congress passed a resolution in response to a June 3rd request from an Indian nation for an American flag. The request was accompanied by 3 strings of wampum for payment. Clearly, the delegates were looking to the heavens. Had they seen such a flag before, namely that made by the widow Elizabeth Griscom Ross? We have no written record, but sworn affidavits by family members are supported by circumstantial evidence. Is this painting a hint? Charles Peale painted Washington in 1779 to commemorate the victory at Princeton. The flag depicted has a circle of 13 6-pointed stars. Here is the story of Betsy Ross. In 1773, Elizabeth Griscom took a job as an assistant in an upholsterer's shop. There she met an apprentice, John Ross. Shortly after John finished his apprenticeship, The couple married and opened their own shop. The newlyweds prospered in their business. They worshipped at Christ Church of Philadelphia, truly a notable church. In all, 15 signers of the Declaration of Independence worshipped here. Philadelphia had a large middle class of skilled tradesmen, and upholsterers were the top of the heap. They made draperies, cushions for furniture, bed linens and curtains, mattresses, carpets, even Venetian blinds. John and Elizabeth attended Christ Church along with many of their affluent customers, including a visitor, George Washington, for whom they made a large order from Mount Vernon in 1774. John Ross died in January 1776. Times were hard in the upholstery business because the war had made fabrics very expensive. Many turned to whatever work was available: tent making, uniform assembly, cartridge making, and flag making. Betsy did all of these. She related that in May or June 1776, 3 men entered her shop: her late husband's uncle, Continental Congressman George Ross, Congressman and financier Robert Morris, and General George Washington. The original Ross house is gone, but the adjacent house is the Betsy Ross Museum, thought to be built on the same floor plan. Records prove that Washington was in Philadelphia during this time. Continental Congress President John Hancock was renting a large house. George and Martha stayed there during their visit. The general pulled a pencil sketch of a square flag with 13 stripes and a blue field of randomly scattered 6-point stars. Betsy claimed that she said she would try to make such a flag, but she recommended 5-point stars, easier and faster to cut. To the gentleman's amazement, she folded a piece of paper and with a single snip produced a perfect 5-point star. She also suggested arranging the stars in rows or in a circle and making the flag rectangular. Mr. Morris gave her a 100-pound note, a small fortune with which to buy materials and produce the flag. When complete, her design was accepted. Betsy later married Joseph Ashburn, an American privateer, in 1777. He was captured by the British and died in a Bristol, England prisoner. A fellow prisoner, John Claypoole, returned to Philadelphia in 1782. Betsy and John were married in 1783, remaining together until his death in 1817. Betsy continued flag making until her death on January 30, 1836, at age 84. Francis Hopkinson, a congressman of New Jersey, laid claim to designing the first official flag. His flag arranged 13 6-point stars in a 3-2-3-2-3 pattern. Mr. Hopkinson was a prolific designer. His Continental $50 note has an unfinished pyramid, which appears again in his design of the Great Seal of the United States, still on the $1 bill. His original sketch was slightly modified for the front of the seal. The Continental Congress kept a tight hold on the nation's purse strings. Hopkinson asked for a payment for his designs, but most believe such services should be expected gratis from public officials. Finally, he asked for a quarter cask of wine, but even that was never paid. Mr. Hopkinson's design is considered by many to be the first official flag, although the U.S. flag was not fully standardized until 1959. In fact, there were multiple variations of the 13-star flag during the American Revolution. Each has a story of the patriots who flew them. As America grew, her flag changed. In 1795, 2 stars and 2 stripes were added when Vermont and Kentucky became states. In 1818, 5 new states joined at once. The custom of 13 stripes for the original states and a star for each state began in that year. In all, there have been 27 versions of our flag as new states entered the Union. Even among these, there were variations. In 1959, Congress standardized the American flag, but even this standard applies only to officially used federal flags. 244 years later, she still flies over the land of the free. America is the land of the free for one reason and one reason only: because it is the home of the brave.